Wrong. I'm Charlie. Welcome to Moving Home with Charlie, and thank you for coming.
Charlie Lambden grew up in Sussex, is the founder of Best Agent and presenter of Moving Home with Charlie.
If you want to find one of these guys, look out for those compassionate professionals. All estate agents are not the same.
So, Charlie, what would be your advice for people interested in buying new builds right now?
Don't overpay. Do buy, but don't overpay. That's why I say disregard the guff. Read into the numbers and look, and it's buried. The bad news is buried in the small print, okay?
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Property Press Awards.
They may or may not be telling the truth, but you should form your own view. Get out and view, get out and view, get out and view. You cannot be in a position to make offers and have the offers accepted if you're not viewing. Just be out there viewing. Pay attention to the back of the class. If you've not been watching my videos, I did one just a couple of days ago. Disregard the guff, guys. Good evening, everybody. I am well-known doom-monger and scaremonger, Charlie Lambden, and this is Moving Home with Charlie, and welcome to another live stream where I've got not only Housing Stig, also known as, well, actually, no, Alex Groundwater, known as Housing Stig, but also two other guests waiting in the wings, ready to join. First of all, two warnings. There will be swearing on tonight's live stream. So if that offends you, please be aware, heads up now, there is going to be profanity because I'm going to find it difficult to express myself clearly enough without it this evening. Okay, so that's point number one. Point number two, this live streaming is being done via my mobile phone's internet connection, which sometimes has a really fast connection, as I think it is right now, and other times it doesn't. So apologies in advance if there are interruptions to the speed. Now, this evening, all my regular viewers are welcome. All my new viewers are extra welcome. Thank you very much and welcome to the channel. But I am here specifically to address the doubters. Let me first define doubters. I mean, you are people who are hearing what I'm saying and you would like to consider yourself open-minded and would like to consider yourself realistic and would like to consider yourself as someone who's done your research and looked into things, but still don't think that what I'm expecting out of the housing market is actually likely to happen. And I want to be really, really clear about the reason for doing tonight's live stream. I actually had a conversation with Alex earlier today saying, it feels like I'm beating my head against a brick wall, and I'm not really sure that it's actually worth trying to help. And he roared with laughter and said, now you're getting it. In other words, there's no point. There's nothing anyone can do. We'll come on to that in a minute and hear Alex repeat that in his own words. But so there is a group of people who are beyond help, which are the I affectionately call the idiots, who just, well, it's simple. It's simple. That's a classic sign of someone who has not done their research. Nothing about the housing market is simple, right? So anyone who starts a comment under a video about the housing market going, it's simple, is someone who wishes it was simple so they could understand it, but hasn't done that research. Because anyone who does any amount of research will very, very quickly find there is nothing simple. It's not supply and demand. It's simple, it's supply and demand. No, it's not. And for those of you who think you know, because it's supply and demand and it's simple, I can't help you. And best of luck, right? Lots of love, best of luck. I'm now going to go through the other naysayers and opponents of what I'm saying, because some of the guys I'm talking to, I've sketched some names down here. So I've got, first of all, what I call the nominal party landlords, okay? My Instagram landlords, the ones who have basically YOLO'd their way into becoming a landlord by borrowing up to the hilt and drinking their profits in pina coladas on the beach in Ibiza when interest rates were low, and are now going, holy shit, I can't afford my mortgage repayment. What am I going to do? And they're also the guys who go, Charlie, house prices always go up. It's a fact. You know, I know because the bloke that got me into this told me house prices always go up. I've been listening to this expert and he says house prices always go up. And that's like their mantra: house prices always go up. And that's those guys, right? I'll stop there. But the nominal party landlords, I'm not talking about the other professional, intelligent landlords, the nominal party landlords who do not like what I'm saying. The next ones are the ones who go, nah, mate, you're wrong. In my area, house prices are still going up. There are some areas where that is the case, but generally speaking, the my area, which is never actually named, and house prices have gone up 5% without any data, are typically the people who, for one reason or another, want and need to believe that the house prices in their area are not going down. Put a pin in that one, come back to it later. Then we've got the ones who go, I can't see it. And they're the ones who sort of say, I hear what you're saying, Charlie, and I hear what you say. I like to think myself open-minded. I hear what you say. I just can't see it. I just can't see it. Now, when someone says that, to me, it's saying, I haven't actually gone and analyzed the numbers you're talking about to see what you mean and find if there is a flaw in your mathematical argument. Okay, you can't see it because you haven't looked. Because as Alex will back up, anyone who looks cannot fail to see it. It's a question of whether you want to see it and whether you want to look and do the work, because it is not easy to do the work to find out. But can't see it means don't want to see it or can't be asked to see it, in my mind. Then we've got the, he's another doom monger. He's on the house price crash bandwagon, just, for fun and shits and giggles and likes and views. And he's just building a profile on the back of the doom. And right. Yes. Okay. I can't help you with those guys. Those of you who think that's what I'm doing, if you're still watching me, why are you still watching me? And then the last one, it was someone on Twitter today, X today, said, Charlie, I don't believe you care about anyone else. I believe that you've got an ulterior motive, and what you're doing is purely for your own benefit. I'm not even going to respond anymore to that one. So, to those of you who are in the middle of a move, considering a move, buying or selling, doesn't matter, first-time buyer, buying and selling, just selling, anything else, the message I want to get across in this video is nothing to do with whether house prices are going up or not. It's about the fact that the housing market has ceased to function correctly, and house prices are coming down, which is a problem for some people, not for others. And there are a lot of people who are doing their research and concluding that, well, Halifax says prices are going to come down 10%. I mean, they wouldn't say that unless they knew what they're talking about. And they're saying it's already come down 5%, so it's probably going to come down another 5%. Okay, so yeah, if we buy now, it might come down another 5%, so we'll probably be fine. And the OBR, the Office of Budget Responsibility, says coming down 10%. So yeah, 10%, we're okay with that. Okay, fine. In a video last week, I think I showed some evidence that whatever Halifax says in its house price report, it tends to turn out worse than they said. So, for example, a year ago, they didn't say house prices are going to fall in the next 5% the next year. But now they've said house prices have fallen in the last 12 months. They didn't say it a year ago. So this Sunday, just gone, I did an exercise where I put myself into the position of someone who's thinking of buying a home. So someone who's not had any involvement in the industry, someone who's just a completely uninitiated first-time buyer, or someone who's thinking of maybe I've seen a couple of headlines about house prices coming down. Maybe I need to look into that. And so thinking about selling. And they've gone to the Sunday papers and they've looked through all of the Sunday papers to try and get a balanced view from the press about what the housing market is doing. Now, most of you who've been following me for a while will know that I have been saying for over a year that house prices are going to collapse. And that the things that I've said are going to happen are happening. There's a big lag on time delay, reporting. As it's coming out, it's showing that what I expected is going to be true. And the reason I'm here today is because what I can see and sense and feel through all of the various collective means of looking at the market is that we are in the early to middle phase of what will end up being the worst house price falls and worst housing market dysfunctionality in living memory. It's going to make 2008 look like a picnic and 1990 look like something not much worse than that. I could be wrong. And if I'm wrong, you're fine and everything's fine, right? But if you're someone who's looking for the truth of what's happening, I urge you to consider what I'm saying. I'm not saying believe me. I'm not saying believe me. Don't believe me. Don't believe anybody. But dig deep enough that you can make up your own mind, having actually found out some truth. Now, when I looked in the media, as someone who knows, as far as I'm concerned, it is an absolute mathematical certainty that the housing market is in a terrible place right now. And prices are falling very steeply at the coalface right now. And they've got a lot more to go the next year. I went to look in the media to see, is there any sign anywhere at all, even a hint that this is happening? And there was nothing. Nothing. There was 10 top places to buy if you're a first-time buyer, and how to do clever stuff with your garden, and all of the normal shit that we get all the rest of the time when the market's normal. It was all there. Nothing. Not even a small... there are some people with a view that the house market's going to... And nothing looking into it. So in other words, amongst the national press and media, there is no warning sign whatsoever when you look at it across the board of the actual truth of what's happening at the coalface. Now, Lewis Shaw, the mortgage broker, who's going to be talking in a minute, he was quoted in the Financial Times today, is on Radio 5 Live tomorrow talking about it. Looking forward to hearing what he says is the difference between what's the cross-section of media reporting versus actual reality. So my fear, right? Let me just reiterate my mission and the reason I do these videos. I am here to help people avoid making the mistake of either buying when they shouldn't or overpaying if you can and should buy, but you should never pay. Or if you're a seller who's going to need to sell, but doesn't think things are that bad and thinks, oh, I'm just going to ignore them. Yeah, it's just mainstream guff, or it's just media, or it's just nutters on YouTube being doom mongers, and think that it's going to be easy to sell. And by the time they find out that it's not, it's too late. And they bought with a 10% deposit a year or two ago, and another 6 months from now will find out that they can't sell it. I'm here to try to minimize the casualties and the collateral damage from this, to minimize the number of people who are going to overextend themselves, be in negative equity, lose their job because of what's happening in the economy. We'll come on to that in a minute, and then end up having their home taken away in negative equity and still being in debt. No home and still in debt. And people who need to sell, who don't sell in time and end up in the same place where when their fixed rate mortgage ends, it's gone up, their house prices come down, they can no longer afford their mortgage because either it's gone up too much or they've lost their job, and now they have to sell, but they can't because they're in negative equity. So in other words, the worst case scenario for both buyers buying either because they're overpaying or at the wrong price right now, at the wrong time, and sellers who don't wake up to what's happening in the market, the end story is the same. You end up losing your home. That's what I'm here to try and help avert. Okay? Now, the specific, and I'm nearly ready. I'm nearly done with my monologue and my rant, guests. So I'll be with you in just a second. The specific phenomenon that I'm worried about is one that I myself just very recently dodged the bullet of. Now, I'm in a new home here, been here 10 days, and we're renting it. Why? The house I was living in, I lived in for 12 years, renting it, and my landlord went bust, and the bank repossessed it, and I wanted to buy it off the bank. And the bank that repossessed it from my landlord said, buy it or get out. Fair enough. We agreed a price to buy it in March. The survey came, and by the way, this is a place that we loved living in and would have loved to live in forever with our family. We've got 3 kids. And so we were all committed to doing this. And I had funding lined up, which was a deposit and lending. But when the survey came back, the survey basically was very, very bad. And it said it needs more than 50% of its value spending, or the purchase price spending on immediate repair work. So my lenders went, no, well, that's not worth that much. We can't lend against it if that's the case. And the bank said, okay, if you're not buying it for that price, out you get, and slapped us with an eviction notice. And we were evicted. We got out just for evicted. But the point is this: here I am now in a rented house after an absolute nightmare couple of months, not being able to find somewhere to live and being homeless and staying with my sister, feeling nothing but a massive sense of relief that I've dodged a bullet of taking on a large financial commitment of borrowing in a house that had huge amounts of maintenance needed doing to it, as we go into arguably the most uncertain economic times we've seen in at least 15 years, if not 30 years. I have genuinely, definitely dodged a bullet. So I'm just going to bring Alex in first for a second. And Alex, evening, you there? Can you hear me?
Good evening, mate.
I just want to wrap something up, right? As of today, government figures out today, unemployment is rising, job vacancies are falling, interest rates have not finished rising yet, and the real wages that were reported today were for Q2, and where they spiked, and we are now halfway through Q3, and anyone who expects Q3 to do the same could be very severely mistaken.
Yeah.
So all the news that came out today is as Alex and I have been expecting for a while, is worse. Then we've got Wilco with its 12,500 redundancies. Barclays announcing 450 people being laid off today. And it goes on and on and on and on. And I can just see the majority of people sleepwalking like zombies into a fucking bloodbath apocalypse of an economy and a housing market. And that's where I'm going to shut up and ask Alex let's just segue like this, right? When we spoke earlier, I said to you, it's like the fucking Titanic. It's like they're going down the Titanic, and I want to try and help people get into lifeboats rather than drown. And you quite rightly pointed out, but Charlie, there weren't enough lifeboats.
No. I mean, and this is the problem. I'm sorry for doing this, everyone. Apologies massively. But if we just think, because to me, housing is one small component of the overall mechanism, which is the economy. And, you and I have discussed housing, we've discussed the economy, but it was one part of the model that I put together last year. If you think about it, for most people, any income that they have is either through investments or wages. I mean, forget inheritances and things, there are other sources, but for most people throughout their lives, they will either have invested in an ISA or in shares, or they have an income from wages. All fine. And where does that money go? Well, you can put it into pensions, you can put it into savings, you could buy bonds or gilts, you could buy shares on the stock market, you could buy gold, you could buy property, you could buy Bitcoin. You could invest, if you were a savvy investor, into REITs, real estate investment trusts, for commercial property. The problem we've got at the moment is all of those things are linked, and we know this. If a stock market crashes, gold prices go up because people take their money out of a falling stock market and they buy gold. Normally, most people invest most of their money into a property that they live in. That's just the way it works. Yes, they put some money into pensions, but less and less over the last years because we no longer have defined benefit pensions. We have defined contribution pensions. People more and more now are putting money into Bitcoin. Now, you know my view on that in terms of stability and its potential future, given what will happen with CBDCs. Commercial real estate, we know, a massive hit over COVID, but even before COVID, there was oversupply. Now, you've got I think it's just over 10% of all the commercial real estate in London is empty. Office space is empty. That's 3 million square meters of empty office space. That's a lot of money that's not being collected in rent.
Yeah.
And what I'm saying is this: yes, the Titanic analogy was accurate, but you sort of believed that if we organized the escape, in an orderly fashion and people followed the rules and they did the right things, that it would be okay for most of us. But no, it's much more like the Titanic. There aren't enough boats. If you fall in the water, you're dead. And if you imagine that each boat is, let's say, gold, and another boat is savings, and another boat is the FTSE, and another boat is house prices. Most of those boats are sinking. You see, the problem is because of the vast debt that sits above all of this, and you can think of the debt as the iceberg that sank the ship,
Right.
But because of that, there isn't any safe place. We've had a couple of people come to both you and I and say, look, I've just sold a house and I've got this money and I don't want to buy just yet. Where do you think I should put it? I've got £200,000. Where should it go? I haven't got a fucking clue.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, what's a good idea at the moment? And you take that forwards and you realize that the truth is that people aren't saving enough into pensions, and that our population demographics suggest that state pensions in 20 or 30 years time are not going to be too wonderful. Property prices we know are going down, and a recession now. The ex-Bank of England chief economist, old Haldane, I think his name is, said it was a 50-50, but he was just trying not to scare people. The chances of us escaping a recession are almost zero. At which point, as we've seen, we've started to see some of the retailers like Wilko going bust, and there's a whole range of things that will happen, and they are all interrelated, and none of them are good for the future. When house prices come down, that will eradicate a lot of people, their perceived wealth that they've built up over the last 5, 10, 20 years.
So just to simplify and recap what you're saying is, there's no way out of the shitstorm that's coming.
No. For
the economy and for the housing market. And I'd like to, because both Andrew and Lewis have both been very patient. I'm just going to like to bring you. I'd start with Lewis, if I may. Good evening, Lewis. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Yourselves?
Well, good. Apart from being prophets of doom, yeah, we're fine. Thank you. Now, Lewis, you were quoted in the Financial Times today. Would you just want to share with everyone what you were saying?
It was about the data from the Bank of England about mortgage arrears, the speed of, how many mortgages have gone into arrears, or more mortgages have gone into arrears, and why basically that is a really bad idea. Well, not a bad idea, of course it's a bad idea, but it's a bad thing because this hasn't really hit yet. There's still 1.6 million people due to renew their mortgages next year. Yep. Even Andrew Bailey in an interview with Sky said only a third of the pain with regards to mortgages has happened, and a lot of that, 2/3 is still to come. And given that mortgage arrears have risen so much, so quickly, especially when energy prices have come down, and it was summer, and therefore, so the energy was stripped out to a certain extent. Given that they've increased so much during that period of time when things were settling down a touch, that doesn't bode well for what's coming over the next kind of 18 months, I guess.
Yeah, I've actually got right here on screen. This is the, and there's a link to this below for anyone who wants it. This is the Financial Conduct Authority's report out in June, and it's got there. Over the next 12 months, 1.7 million fixed rate deals will expire, with 893,000 expiring before the end of this year. And it goes on to just say what a big deal that is. We project that the biggest increase in the number of financially stretched borrowers will occur between July and September this year. So, which we won't see the effect of that. That's happening right now, if that's true. So, I mean, Lewis, would you just characterize? I mean, how well or badly is the housing market functioning from your point of view as a mortgage broker now, and how safe or dangerous do you think it is for people borrowing right now?
Well, it's quiet. It's definitely quieter, but that's to be expected because of everything that's happened. I mean, August was very, very quiet, but again, August is always normally quiet because it's the holiday period, children are away, people taking the time off. There's normally a bounce in September, especially when now that all the children have gone back to school, everyone's back at work. So we expected, just a seasonal bounce to things to kind of push on generally. That's happened all the time that I've been doing the job. And you can see that through graphs. Obviously, it was a bit skewed during COVID because of everything, but generally that happens. It's much quieter, definitely much quieter. There's much less activity. certainly with regards to purchasing, if you've already got a mortgage, then you need to do something about it anyway. But certainly purchase activity is reduced. Would I say it's dangerous to buy now? My personal view on this is no. But I'm going to caveat that. If it's a long-term home, if it's somewhere you're potentially looking at to move in as a very young couple in your very early 20s, then that's probably I wouldn't do that, because generally relationships fail and people have to sell and all that kind of stuff. If it's a case of you're looking to buy because your children are wanting to get into the catchment area for a school and it's going to be the family home for the next 15 plus years, then yes, I wouldn't personally, as long as you're not, as long as you're being sensible with what you can afford. Because I think there's data that shows that over a 10-year period, no matter what 10-year, however you divvy it up, prices are always higher.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? They're never below after a 10-year period. Well, there's obviously odd one, but in the main, and that was the same for the financial crisis, and then again in the 90s, the 80s, etc. So it depends on your circumstances, but certainly with some much reduced activity.
I mean, the thing that I'm most worried about in respect to that topic we just discussed, which is it a dangerous time to buy, is how many, especially younger people, younger buyers, are hearing that the economy is going to get bad, but have never experienced what it means when it gets really bad, and are naively assuming that their job is safer than it really is. And that their industry is not going to be affected and that kind of stuff. It's one of those things that people can't see. They've never experienced sort of big layoffs before in their sector. And I really worry that how many people are going to be caught unaware by that, because no one wants to think that they're at risk. And I can remember myself back in your 20s and your 30s, you think, yeah, it'll be fine. I'll be fine. Yeah, it might be an economy, but I'm not going to be affected by it. And they're the people I'm worried about. Lewis, if it's okay, I'm going to bring Andrew in, because he's been waiting very patiently as well. Just keep you there for a second. Good evening, Andrew. How are you?
I'm all right.
Thank you for waiting patiently for half an hour.
Patiently listening.
So Andrew is an active estate agent on the front lines. He owns 2 estate agencies in the West Country, sort of, and is a qualified RA, Royal Institute Chartered Surveyors member. So one of the things that you do, Andrew, is you're one of the people that contributes to the monthly RACS survey, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I'm a registered valuer, as I've said before, but I think that's quite unique from an estate agency perspective. There are a few of us that are registered valuers, but we contribute to that survey. And I think what's really important at the moment is that data, how accurate that data is. We had Simon Rubinson, who's the chief economist of RACS, on my podcast not too long ago, explaining that data and that quality. And I know it's one of the things that you, Charlie, are very hot on following, because it is accurate frontline data. So
that's why I'm really pleased that you're here this evening, because you're not just an ordinary common or garden estate agent. You've got a level of qualification above most estate agents. So you're a surveyor and an estate agent with 2 different professions, and you're now both. So how's the market feeling for you?
I think the problem is because I take my valuer status on my own vows, I'm quite honest with people as to where things sit. The problem is, if you sell a house, as lots of people did through the last couple of years, at a hugely overinflated price, someone like I will come along and value it for a bank, and we will generally down value to something more realistic. Therefore, you need, as a buyer, a greater degree of equity, because the lender will only lend, let's say, 75%, if that's their LTV, of their perceived value. So obviously that's something that has to be taken into account. And I'm still seeing agents overvaluing property just because, I mean, you know, we have a lack of listings as a rule. I never want to overvalue, because what's the point? At the end of the day, I've got to invest in that property to sell it, and it's got to go through to completion. Otherwise, you know, I don't get paid.
Yeah.
So there's no point in us particularly overvaluing, but I do see huge demand for other agents who really do struggle and want stock to overvalue.
Right.
And of course, you know, a vendor will always say, oh, well, you know, you're completely wrong because this other agent valued it at this figure. So I see that a lot, and that's something that vendors need to be careful of. But equally, buyers have been, you know, and I say this with total respect to the people listening, but buyers are like goldfish. So they have a memory of the last couple of years, and the last couple of years has been very, very fast paced. And you see a house listed at, let's say, 500,000, which is really only worth about 450, 460. But the perception is, well, we have to, if we want to look at that house, we've got to expect to pay 500,000 for it. So it's about getting the perception of the buyer that there are deals to be had, and
Right.
there are deals to be had, with certainly those that are in rented, you know, that have no chain.
Yeah.
It's always a fear when we see long chains as agents, because you just don't know what's going to happen lower down the chain. Building
I mean,
safety
chains are about as difficult as they've been in a long time, aren't they? Right now, holding a
Definitely.
chain together is an absolute nightmare, isn't it?
I mean, I expect 30% of fall throughs as a general rule. It's still annoying when they happen, but you know, 30% is a general rule of thumb. Yeah, I mean, I had a chain collapse yesterday on the eve of exchange, which was as a result of the bottom of the chain. You know, and only a 3-property chain, but the buyer at the very bottom just decided he didn't want to buy it anymore, and everyone was ready to exchange. And it's that type of buyer that's causing problems. I mean, that's one type of buyer, but I suspect that buyer will come back in a week and try and renege on that bottom of the chain, to try and, you know, come in with a much lower offer, and then that will have repercussions for a knock-on effect up the chain, where potentially all the vendors going up through will have to either agree to a reduction. I don't know for sure whether that will happen, but that's quite a common tactic at the moment.
Right.
But yeah, chains not holding together are a big problem. But if you're in rented and you're looking to buy, there are deals to be had. Get your finances in order first, and go to the agents with the finances in order and say, look, okay, here's my offer, and you know, and get on with it. But I would totally agree with what Lewis said. You know, now is not a bad time to buy. I think you have to look at buying now in a sense that you buy for the now. Don't buy for, you know, don't think, oh well, I need to wait and go back and you know, and all that. I think that's the that's something to take into account. But there are good deals.
Well, I mean, with great affection and respect to both of you, you know, you are both in a business where you make a living, where because people need to buy houses and stuff, and so I don't disagree with what you're saying, that if you're buying as a home and staying long term and you can afford it, I completely agree. Definitely buy. And if you are rented and you've got your finances, there are deals to be had, and provided you're very cautious and you get yourself what really feels like a safe price in this market, absolutely. But I wouldn't agree that now is a good time to buy generally, compared to the normal general times in the market. Now is arguably the most dangerous time for a lot of people to buy. People who would normally just come along and go, hey, I've got a 10% deposit and I've got a mortgage, I want to buy somewhere. And everyone would go, okay, cool, that's great, we're going to get you somewhere, and they go out and eventually they find somewhere and buy somewhere. That kind of person is at much greater risk right now than they would be in normal market conditions. So I think I just want to caveat what you've both said about it's not a bad time to buy. Well, it depends who you are. There are people for whom it's a terrible time to buy.
I agree with that, Charlie. It's buy for what you want, and if you it's everybody is different. Everyone has a very different set of circumstances.
Yeah.
But it's yeah. I think, and from a vendor's perspective, I would be very, very cautious of every agent who says, "Oh, we'll sell it within a week." It's still typical. It's still the typical agent of, we have to be honest and say, we don't know. We just don't know.
Because
it might sell within a day.
Down valuations are happening a lot more now than normal, aren't they? So down valuations are happening a lot, and that can scupper a chain, can't it?
And it always absolutely depends on how much equity someone has. If someone's got enough equity to cover that down valuation and they're still prepared to pay the price they've negotiated, then it doesn't really matter.
And Lewis, sorry Andrew, but Lewis, are you, when you're talking to buyers, because some people are saying, hang on, if I don't buy now and if I wait till next year, I might not be able to get the same mortgage. Alex today noticed the Martin, London Money, on Twitter talking about how the offers that are coming for clients are starting to get lower, like just 2.5 times gross combined income, that kind of stuff. Are you worried that someone that can get a mortgage offer now won't get it in a year's time?
I mean, there's a possibility, because lenders can change their lending policy. They can be mandated to change their lending policy by the Prudential Regulation Authority if they decide that the rules need to change. So yes, affordability is tighter, and I'd say that on average, yes, there's more scrutiny certainly on bank statements. There's definitely more. Well, with particular lenders, there's much more scrutiny. So it's not as easy as it once was, for sure.
Yeah.
Where will it be in a year's time? Who knows? Because generally, when it gets a bit trickier, then lenders do tend to climb up a bit, and what would have passed today or last month may not pass. But there's no way to predict that, because it's just, ultimately it's some guy sat in a chair up in a boardroom that decides we're going to now do this. That's fantastic. Lewis and Andrew, thank you both very much for joining us this evening and making a contribution. Very valuable. Thanks for your time and your patience. I'm going to say goodbye to you guys now, and unleash Alex. See you later, Charlie. See ya.
Good to see you guys. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So, Alex, let me start by asking you what you think is going to happen in terms of mortgage availability in the next year.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I agree with Lewis. There will be some bloke at a boardroom table who will go, oh, well, okay, we don't want to take so much risk on the books at the moment. Everything's a little bit shit. So what we're going to do is, if they've got children, they're paying childcare, we're going to, enforce this measure and so on and so forth. The problem is that person doesn't do it for each individual mortgage. What they do is they get their developer monkeys to go along and change the parameters of the algorithm, and suddenly 25% of the people who go in and say, can I have a mortgage, that they would have been able to get the day before, will no longer be able to get it. Yeah. The computer will quite literally say no. And that, I'm afraid, is the world we live in now. You don't have a friendly bank manager who actually knows you, believes in you, has some faith in your honor and duty in your work ethic. It will simply be a computer algorithm, which means that's why the credit crunch now is a blanket effect, and it will start happening. There is no doubt that lenders are going to reduce their risk profile. I can't see why they would do anything else unless the government were to underwrite the loans, and the government can't afford to do that. So a private bank is not going to go, yeah, that's okay. We could lose the money, but we'd love to see you in a new house.
See, I wonder whether the media collectively, all of it, left wing, right wing, all the media collectively, and the journalists who write about the property market, the economy there, whether because their life is just reading data reports, isn't it? They've got to write articles based on official data, and it's always got to be that. They don't get to write opinion very much. So when it comes to the housing market, they're always writing about out-of-date stuff.
Yes, it's always late.
I wonder whether or not the consensus amongst them is the same. I mean, if I had to characterize the problem consensus, it's this. Yeah, we can see house prices are coming down, but they're not going to come down much more. Yeah, 35%. No way, that's not going to happen.
No, we're halfway there. We're halfway there, Charlie.
I know. I fucking know. I'm well aware of this, but with the time lag, the reporting time lag doesn't tell us that.
No, sorry. I mean, from the 5% that they're accepting, we're only going to hit 10%, so we're halfway there. Any more than 10%, never a chance.
And so some people are going, well, I mean, let's just give Charlie some slack here and go, okay, let's say maybe they're going to fall 20%. I've seen so many comments like that. Yeah, they could come down 20%, peak to trough, but that still just takes us back to pre-pandemic. Again, getting the maths wrong, because 20% up from 500,000 is not the same as 20% down from 600,000. No. That takes you lower, obviously.
Well, there's a little trick to that, just for anyone who's interested. If you go up 20 and down 20, just multiply the two together. 2 times 2 is 4, and the percentage drop is 4%. If you went up 30 and down 30, you've actually come down 9%, 3 times 3. So you don't need to be a maths genius. It's a very simple little trick, and it will let you know immediately.
But to those people who are thinking worst case 20%, and then they they have an offer accepted 10% below asking price.
Yeah.
The story they're telling themselves in, well, I've got 10% of asking price, so I'm already halfway to the worst case that Charlie's saying of 35%, which I'm now calling 20%. So that's okay. And I have this deep, and you probably sensed it when I called you earlier today. I have felt really disturbed at the mass underestimating of not only the friction in the housing market and what that means, by the way, if you're buying and selling, right? Even if you get a property and think you can buy it or sell it, it's taking so long, and the chances of change falling apart, even when nobody wants them to fall apart, is so high.
Right. Yep.
It just means that moving is, put aside the financial thing, like the people I had a call with this morning, a one-to-one call, and they were in a comfortable position, and I just said, so you like the house you're in a comfortable position, you agree that we're going into really uncertain economic times, and you're thinking of selling? Why? Why would you? You have a house. I mean, yes, I can see that there are things you'd like. They're nice to have.
You've seen the meme, Charlie. I want problems always. That's the only reason they could be thinking like that.
Yeah, and again, the official figures say, well, unemployment's on the rise and job vacancies are falling. But that data is lagged. It's delayed. And almost anyone you talk to, except for a few people who are in lucky industries that are experiencing growth, but they're in the minority, most people are going, yeah, I have actually had I've got friends who've been laid off, and I've got a reduction in my own work, and this, but this, that's okay. That's kind of, people said that would happen. They're not understanding that this is just the beginning of what's going to be absolute carnage as far as the economy is concerned. I think, and you think, but nobody will say it, because if you are a national media journalist and you say that, you instantly get branded as what was it? I was called a noisy outlier,
which I still think is true. But anyway, no.
What do you mean? Sorry, what's true?
That you are a noisy outlier.
Okay. So if noisy outliers are occasionally correct? I suppose history, as you were saying to me earlier, Charlie, you're wasting your fucking time. No one's going to listen.
Anyway, so the thing that, from my perspective, taking a slightly wider view, the thing that concerns me the most is this. People go, oh, well, we'll just be back at pandemic levels, 20 up, 20 down. Okay, they're wrong. Obviously, that would be lower. But more importantly, during the pandemic, people used the fact that they couldn't spend any money to pay down an awful lot of debt. I mean, they paid down £16 billion worth of credit cards, and they paid down £13 billion worth of loans. That's nearly £30 billion of debt that got wiped off. But you know what? Since sort of 22, it's all come back on again. And why has it come back on? Well, partly you can say cost of living crisis, yada, yada, yada. But it's also because they believed that their house prices had gone up so much that them borrowing other money wasn't a problem because they were making money day by day on their house. So it's been one of those false things where, oh, yes, house prices have gone up. Oh, well, they'll only come back down to where they were. But in the interim, people have gone, oh, but house prices have really gone up. So I can take that holiday or buy that car because it doesn't matter because my house is worth more. So people have made decisions in the last year and a half, let's say, that are not going to help them long term, but in the belief that their house is worth more. So when it does fall, even if it only fell 20%, which makes it 4% cheaper than it was before COVID, that is still going to be a massive impact when the interest rates on the debt that they've accumulated come back and bite them in the arse.
Yeah. Well, you've also just reminded me of another topic, which is the number of times I've heard, yeah, Charlie, people just don't want to hear this. Now, let's just go there for a second, because of course nobody wants to hear that something they own is reducing in value. But just because you don't want to hear it, do you think that if you don't hear it, it means it's not happening? Or even if it's not what you want to happen, wouldn't you rather know?
It's because
it's almost as though these guys are going, no. If I don't hear you say it, then it's not happening.
That tree did not fall. Those house prices are staying where they are.
And this is what, to me, I find staggering, because I would want to know. Do you remember that line in The Godfather? Don Corleone insists on hearing bad news straight away. It's intelligent. It's sensible.
Well, when people ask, what do you want to hear first, the good news or the bad news? Anyone who says the good news first, nuts.
Yeah, you always hear bad news first. Always need the bad news first.
Yeah, because then you can understand how to react to the good news.
So I and whether these people are the people who own the media channels, because that's what I've been told. Charlie, you're not getting more media coverage because the owners just don't want it. They don't want that message going out. They don't want the public hearing house prices are falling.
No, not yet.
But again, it's like, so if you're fortunate enough to be wealthy enough to have a portfolio of properties, what are you saying? You'd rather people didn't find out so that they keep on buying and getting themselves into problems? You'd rather disadvantage other people than just accept the fact that your nice portfolio isn't as valuable as it was. In which case, again, I'm sorry, like, what? Honestly, that's the guy you want to be?
Well, but people have obligations, and this is, I mean, I understand it. If let's pretend you're the grandparent, you were the lucky boomer, and you've done very well, and in your 50s you decided to buy a few buy-to-let properties and so on and so forth, and your daughter has come to you, and she's married, and she's got 2 kids, and the kids have now got to the age of 11, 12, whatever it may be. And she goes, I'd really like to send them to the school that you sent me to. And the father goes, well, that's fantastic. Well, and how much is that? Well, it's £15,000 per child per term. So we're talking about 100 grand a year. And suddenly, ultra rich boomer grandpa is going, well, that's okay. But then the kids at school, been there 2 years, got 3 years to go to do A-levels. And when you have these sort of commitments, people don't want, especially when they involve family, they don't want to hear, they don't want to believe that there's a chance that they're going to have to make a life-changing decision. Now, are those the ultra privileged that you were just talking about? Yes, of course they fucking are. Yeah. But that same concept for different things extends much further. It extends to a normal, 48-year-old who happened to have a kid very young, who is now 25, and would really like to move out into a flat with his new girlfriend. And, you know, the parents have always said, oh, we'll help you, son. We'll help you. And they're looking around at the moment going, fuck, how the hell are we going to help him with a deposit? It's tough. It's human nature.
But again, yeah, the thing is, if you are that rich grandpa boomer saying, don't worry, I'll take care of the school fees, but then actually you weren't, you said they don't want to hear it. Would you not want to know before you splashed out?
Yes,
like, would you not?
I would. Of course you would.
I would question anyone watching this is going, oh, I'm watching this, Charlie, because I want to be able to say I've heard what Charlie said and he's talking bollocks and I'm just discounting it. House prices aren't coming down. Everything's going to be fine. Like, what if you're wrong? Like, if I'm wrong, great for you and everyone else, right? Yeah. Consider that I'm right, be prepared, and if I'm wrong, fantastic. But if you're wrong,
you're fucked.
Like I said at the title of the video, either I'm wrong or you're fucked.
Yeah, exactly.
And it just, to me, this is like everyone, well, not everyone, a lot of people like to consider themselves intelligent. I, for one, do not. I genuinely don't. I consider myself just trying to keep on scraping myself off the bottom of the ignorant part because there's just so much I don't know, and I want to find out more. And never assume you know anything, and never believe anything either. Only believe if you've seen the concrete evidence yourself. I just don't understand anyone who'd go, I don't want to come to terms with the fact that the things that I own are worth less than I thought they were.
Yeah.
How does that point of view help anyone? Anyway, I won't bang that drum anymore. So, guys, I've got some comments here that have come through that I would like to address.
You're talking about Paddy again?
No, we'll come back to that. I got this is going right back to the beginning, actually. So Richard Longmere says, unless you're a first-time buyer or wanting to take out equity out of your house, then actually prices are irrelevant. Now, what he's referring to is saying if you're buying and selling, if you're moving, then prices are irrelevant because, well, that's not actually true because in real life, your individual property you're selling and the one that you're buying won't move in absolute harmony in terms of price. There will be variations.
Synchronicity.
So it's a bit too much of an oversimplification there, Richard, but I hear the point. David McKenzie, better to be a doom monger than a false hope monger.
100%.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Couldn't agree more. Susie Logan, I was in. Wait. Oh no, I've lost it. She said she was in a chain of 6 houses and it was an absolute nightmare, but she exchanged today. Congratulations. No, I keep picking the wrong thing. Someone else just said, meant to put it on the screen, I deleted it. Said someone else said, what if the house price cuts never come and the sellers just don't sell? You've got to understand that there isn't just one category of sellers, right? You've got at least 3, and that's being very, very rough, categories of sellers. The ones who've got no choice but to sell, the ones who need to sell because they need to move for life reasons. It's not because they're choosing to, but they kind of need to. They're not what I call the forced sellers who've got no choice but to sell, but they're the ones that really, really need to because otherwise life's going to be difficult. And then there are the ones who go, yeah, I'm going to sell it because I have, and they sit the house on the market for stupid money and it sits there for years not selling. So 1/3 of it typically are the death, debt, divorce stuff that happens whether they like it or not. Those continue to sell no matter what happens. So it's not a question of something. Again, people oversimplifying. Oh, sellers just won't sell. Well, then they're not really real sellers. They're tire kickers. James Gould makes a point, and I wanted to bring up because it's especially if you are a seller or a buyer, it's a huge mistake to think this. I began in this industry thinking this, right? So James Gould says, typical estate agents roll on them closing down. A lot of them are closing down. A lot of them are business, closing branches at the moment, right? But understand this. When you need to move house, you will be grateful for a good estate agent. and you will understand why they're necessary. Honestly, do you think there would be estate agents if they weren't necessary? Do you think there would be 20-something thousand estate agency branches around the country if they weren't completely unavoidable, right? If they all closed down, there'd be a nightmare, because moving house, someone else put a comment up today about, there's no one better to sell my house than me. Again, you're missing the point about
what does they say about lawyers?
You don't need. The point is, it's not about selling a house. You don't need to sell a house. A buyer will come around and they'll like it or they won't. Right? That's not where the skill lies. The skill is not in being a salesperson of your house. And if you think that, I'm sorry, you're massively misguided. The skill is in holding a fucking chain together. It's got nothing to do with how well you know your house. You've got a chain of people who want to move house. The chain's got to be held together. And there are multiple people involved at every step of the chain. And it's a nightmare. And that's where agents really have their work cut out. And it's the hard work. Their work really just begins when a deal is agreed. So nobody should be wishing for all agents to close down. The bad ones, yes. I am including myself in the ones who want bad agents out of business. Okay. But good agents need to be championed and recommended and appreciated for what they do. Richard Whiteside on YouTube says the Telegraph has been predicting a roughly 20% drop for over a year. You are not unique. Oh, I am unique, but not for the reasons that you're talking about. I'm joking, but I've never said I'm not unique. I've never said I'm unique. But they said 20%. I'm saying 35%. I think I'm the only one publicly, regularly saying 35% nominal drops. I think I am the only one there. There are other people who agree with me, I know, but they're not housing market commentators getting coverage in the media. I was in This Is Money yesterday, and it was the first time someone actually printed, Ed Magnus printed in the article, my 15 to 50% regional variations on the falls. It was the first time that's gone into print in a big publication, which is good to see, because that is exactly what I think. So, Richard, I'm not trying to be unique. That's not why I'm here. And there are other people I know. There are plenty of people out there warning about the housing market as well. But maybe the reasons are different. I'm genuinely here to try and avoid people getting on board the Titanic. They bought their ticket. Well, I'm saying, do not get on board the Titanic now unless you've got your own escape mechanism and life raft.
This goes back to your agent friend, etc., who was on earlier, Andrew. He was saying about purchasing now, and the way as he was saying it, I was just thinking about. I had a friend who went out and bought a 63 AMG Mercedes S-Class, brand new. Now he knew that the moment that he drove it out of the garage, it was going to depreciate by about £40,000.
Right.
Didn't give a flying fuck.
No,
he loved that car. He wanted that car. He could afford it. He planned on keeping it for 3 or 4 years. He got all the right spec. He checked with all the dealers to make sure what the most, the best spec for a second-hand buyer was. A beautiful car. But I don't think there's that many people in that position who are happy to literally the next day wake up and go, oh man, I just saw £40,000 evaporate. It doesn't sit well with me. So I see where Andrew's coming from, but that's a message that needs to be tempered quite carefully.
Yeah. Paddy, let's go to Paddy, and then I'm going to get some more questions. Inflation is going to pick up again. Rates are going to 10%, in my opinion, which actually reminds me to bring up. Where is it? Yes, this. You're going to hate me.
Oil prices?
Nope. Hang on. Oh, God, I clicked the wrong button. Sorry, 1 second. Here it comes. Here it comes. Here it comes. Here it comes. And there we have it.
Yep.
That's the last 6 months on the trueflation. So it's the point is, look at that increase recently, that sudden marked increase, having had quite a few sort of drops down. It's come from percent, but it's going back up. It's going back up. So it's worth revisiting our bet, actually, isn't it? At the moment,
Yeah, but our bet, as I keep telling you, is not about inflation. And as I said, inflation won't come down until sometime next year. The bet is about wages and whether wages will be above inflation. Now, the problem is the higher this is, the more you lose. You do understand that the way you win this bet is if inflation falls through the floor and therefore wage growth is real, and therefore you win because real wages are higher. Because the bet is that real wages are lower. So show me this graph and I go, cheers, Charlie. I'm definitely winning that fucking bet. The sword. Pluck that sword from my eye and insert it in your own.
All right. So, and what about Charles Archer? So he's still calling 7%, isn't he? Paddy's saying 10%.
He is, and I haven't. Look, I still, I've always said that I believed it would be between 5 and 6.
Yeah.
But bear in mind that's a year old. Charles and I have a gentleman's agreement because he actually started at 8. So we have a gentleman's agreement that 7 is probably where it'll end, and we'll both therefore be wrong. He'll be wrong with his 8, and I'll be wrong with my maximum of 6.
Okay.
So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, and Annie, it was Munchausen syndrome. It's just Charlie couldn't spell.
There we are. I've got it there on the screen.
Yes, that's better.
Munchausen syndrome. Do you want to just remind anyone that wasn't watching the other day what Munchausen syndrome is?
This is where sellers damage themselves simply by not reducing their price because their baby's so beautiful. There's no proxy. It's just them.
And telling themselves stories.
Yeah.
Telling themselves stories about why the kitchen that they upgraded means it's worth more.
Well, I tell you, that granite was hand carved by a man named Sven.
Now, do we have any more questions about? Have we got anyone else to talk about? Like, what I want to do is I want to get more people to think very carefully before proceeding and to understand that moving house this year, even if you can afford it, is going to be very difficult. And just to be really cautious that you are comfortable with what you think is going to happen to the economy in the next year or two. For those of you who haven't watched it, go and look up the video called Death in Poverty, which is me and Alex talking about it, and Alex explaining his theory, which is coming true by the month at the moment. Where what did you say to him on the phone earlier? There just is no way out of this. It's been in the making. It's been coming down the pike for what?
Over
decades?
20 years. Yeah.
Over 20 years.
Well, look at it. There's two options, isn't there? Either interest rates go up or they go down, based on probably inflation either going up or going down. So if interest rates go down, that can only be because inflation has dropped away.
Yeah.
What that means is that we're heading into recession. What do we associate with recession? We associate unemployment, wage shrinkage, therefore more poverty. On the other hand, if inflation continues to be high and interest rates go up, then the amount of money, because the debt is so huge, I keep saying debt, because the debt is so huge, the servicing cost of those debts with higher interest rates means that people will have no money to spend in the economy. They won't be able to afford their houses, which will be repossessed. And yet again, we end up with homelessness and poverty. So it doesn't really fucking matter at this point, unless, and this has always been my point from the beginning, we can magic away at least a portion of that debt. We have to, ask our fairy godmother very nicely if she can wave her wand and just make some of that debt disappear so that servicing it, whether interest rates are higher or lower, doesn't cost us as much. And the only way that I see that we can do that is with CBDCs and the removal of cash from our system, a change in our entire financial system, which will then allow countries to talk to each other and agree an entire debt jubilee at a country and government level that allows the Western world to reset its profligate spending habits. And if you want to call that nihilistic, I go back and say, at least I could spell Munchausen syndrome.
I would be absolutely astonished if that were to happen, because I cannot see anyone with the strength of character and leadership to actually get the right people around a table and get them all to agree. I know it happens, these things occasionally, but I mean, it's normally during wartime, isn't it, or just after a world war? Maybe that's why. Right. Maybe that's why some people think that there is a world war in the making.
Well, that's what traditionally happens in these situations. I mean, traditionally, in this situation in the Western world, there would be a war. I mean, that without a shadow of a doubt, we are absolutely geared up as to where poor old Germany was before the Second World War, and I use the word poor advisedly, and back through history, but we have a different scenario now with nuclear weapons in terms of a global war, which I think is very unlikely. Local conflicts, possibly. In fact, local conflicts almost definitely, because it helps to ramp up weapons manufacture, which helps the economy and so on and so forth, and kills off a bunch of young people who otherwise would be claiming universal credit. Christ. I go back to my favorite album. I keep telling you, the Dead Kennedys, Give Me Convenience or Give Me Death. You can learn everything you need to know about life from that album.
That's the name of the album, is it?
Give Me Convenience or Give Me Death. Jello Biafra's seminal work.
Okay. I need to check that out. Okay. Ditchhead says, hi, Charlie and Stig. Do you see cheaper flats under 200k dropping up to 35% in the South? I think it's really worth pointing out that the lower end of the market is less likely to see the biggest falls.
Yeah.
So it's not impossible. And there will be areas definitely where that happens. But in the South, I mean, the South is very big, relatively, Southeast, Southwest, just the South. I don't know. But generally speaking, as a rule of thumb, the biggest falls aren't likely to be at the lower bottom part of the market. Max Crooks, do you want to read this out?
You guys are funny cunts. I know, and we smell terrible, but what can you do? Thank you, Max. Can we have Freddie Moses?
Deflation.
Yeah.
So you're saying
you know nothing, Jon Snow.
Inflation goes up or it goes down. You're saying we hit the iceberg, whatever happens.
Yeah.
Right. We're hitting the iceberg. It doesn't really. So literally, it doesn't matter what happens to interest rates. It doesn't matter what happens to inflation, because the debt has become totally unmanageable, and the debt is what's going to kill us.
Correct.
Yeah.
And people will say, oh, use the printers. We'll just run some more money. Oh, fuck off. That's just hyperinflation. It's just another way of dying. Do you want to die by sword or by poison? It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Freddie Moses?
Yes, what was he saying?
The Jubilees will be the last option.
Oh, wait.
No, that one.
Higher up or lower down?
Lower down. 2106. Freddie, I do not disagree with you. They will try the tax route. But if 12.5% of your people are unemployed, and have you seen universal credit and the number of people who are now long-term sick, which, by the way, just so you know, has increased by over 1.3 million since 2020. You can't tax people who've got no fucking money. So, yes, they'll raise the taxes, but it won't generate any more revenue. It certainly won't generate enough revenue to pay back the enormous debts. So I'm afraid that is a hiding to nothing. Honestly, the magic wand, the fairy godmother, the CBDCs, the overarching controlling state who force you to spend your money and then stick a broomstick up your ass, that's where we're going.
Rich has made an interesting comment. Best get yourself sent to prison for a couple of years. Free food, clothing, heating, and telly. When you get out, it might have sorted itself out.
Well, we're back to the broomstick up the arse. I don't want it. I just don't want it.
God, dearie me. Yeah. Guys, right. This is, I could keep going, but. Oh, Fred Harrison's prediction. I just want to address this, because Fred Harrison's guy says it's 18 years, exactly 18 years.
Fuck off.
probably. I know.
Go to
Very nice.
1972. If it's 18 years, why don't you go to 72? Oh, house prices were going way up. But didn't they drop in 90? They did drop in 90.
Yeah, I know. And the thing is that actually, because of the reporting lag, the bottom of this house price downturn is going to be in 2026, which is when he predicted. So he's going to say, yes, see, I told you.
Oh,
But then by that stage, it's too late and everyone's fucked. So I'm trying to say, well, let's not wait until after it's happened and go, that was a coincidence. I got it right. Even if you do believe in Fred Harrison's prediction of every 18 years, then you should already have taken into account that it's begun, because it always happens over 3 years. So 2022 to 2025 being when it happens, and then 26 finally the bottom gets reported. Do we have any other crackers worth? I don't know what I'm going to call it. Anyway, it's late. I've got to go, and it's been
I've
fun.
nearly finished this bottle, so
Well, you must be gasping for a fag.
I am. You're so right.
And it's been brilliant fun, and amazingly, my internet's held up.
Yeah, really well. You haven't gone boing once. It was very impressive.
Staggering. I've only got 2 pips of 5G. Oh, I've just gone boing now. Because I touched my phone. I shouldn't have touched it.
Don't look at it. Don't touch it. It's a quantum phone. Never observe it.
Oh, guys, you're all quality. Thank you for watching. I hope this has been helpful. And one last thing. So someone said to me today, a follower who's a long-time follower, I didn't meet, but we had a one-to-one video call. And he said, I've been sending your videos to my family for the whole time I've been watching you, and they all think you're talking nonsense.
What?
He said they're not listening. They're going to wish they had. But I just thought to myself, that's the problem. It's like people might be spreading my videos around. People watching going, but he's saying, oh, house prices are la 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 la. It's nonsense. I don't want to hear it.
But he said something about being the best kicker in Britain. Anyway, Swift. Yes, prices did drop in 90. Now go back and have a look at 72, which was 18 years earlier. Guess what? Prices were going up all the way till 74. Anyway.
Thank you, guys. You're all amazing. If any of you feel like you want to have half an hour or an hour talking to me over a private one-to-one video call, you can do so. And it's been really interesting, the guys I'm talking to, almost all buyers, no sellers, which I find astonishing. I think the sellers just don't want the truth bomb, do they?
No.
Almost all buyers are basically saying, look, I want to buy now, but I'm really worried about it. Just talk me through and check. Yeah. So anyway, that URL down there, buymeacoffee.com/MHWC. And actually now, on the mhwc.co.uk homepage, there is a button that you can also click to go and book a slot with me if you want one. And otherwise, we'll see you on the next one. Thank you all very much for watching. Have a safe night. Sleep well. See you soon. And if you've got questions, go check out the video backlog on YouTube. Not backlog. I should go, shouldn't I?
Yeah. Have a good one, guys. Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.